Hi everybody, I want to give you some information about Module 2 as you move in. And so the focus of Module 2 is on, well, it says communication in the classroom. It really is on interactive communication. Or more narrowly, we're going to look at conversational interaction, which is a type of discourse. So if you think about language in these sort of pots that or buckets that we've created, one of them is conversational discourse or pragmatics. And within that, you really are talking about things like syntax, semantics, meaning, semantics, morphology. All of that is mixed in. But it is a larger category, and it really is focused on interaction. So that's the focus of the readings for this module. In this module, you will learn about language discourse, in particular conversational discourse. You'll learn about various tools. Mostly they're checklists, but various tools that can help you assess. You're going to use observation, primarily observation, to assess and identify possible language communication goals for your students. In week 1, you will apply it to one student, to Lee, and you have a video that as a group in your discussion group, you will look at to Lee's video sample and make some decisions about what you think he knows and can do around interactive conversational dialogue. And then in week 2, you apply it to your student. We're going to look at a variety of tools, but we'll focus on the conversational P levels. And you'll create 2 goals for your student. So just sort of as a, to kind of get you ready, conversational language is, communication is developmental. So you see in a young child the kind of interaction that they engage in is very different as all these other, their vocab, their content, their form, and their function for communication, which we talked about last module, all develop, and of course they're in a variety of social interaction and academic interaction kinds of contexts. So that is developmental, and many of these tools do look at various levels. What are the expectations for kindergartners? What are early, even for young children? What are the expectations for kindergartners? What happens as those expectations for interactive conversational communication? How do they grow and how do they change? These tools focus not just on academic, but also social. So you have these 2 very different contexts, but a lot of the same skills that are required. And so for the launch, as this kind of will move, the launch you have due on Monday, and it is about what are the demands for that kind of interaction in a classroom. The Explore, I have my notes. There's some reading starting with assessment, which is, you have this book, and you have the tools. This is where we'll find the P level, proficiency level communication skills, the tool that you'll use. So that is in the spiral bound book. You'll also look at these 3 other checklists. The checklist for social interaction for preschool and kindergarten, and social interaction elementary, and then the Minnesota is one that a lot of people use in Wisconsin to talk about the kinds of social skills that are needed in schools. So that is also a good checklist to look at. So you'll look through those checklists. And then we're going to focus, to summarize, we really focus on the use of one tool. And those are the conversational proficiency levels, or for short, we call them the P levels. The Wisconsin State School for the Deaf uses these, the P-levels to track a child's conversational development from when they get there. It might be preschool all the way through high school. So they're used at WSD. Teachers also use them in order to get a really good picture of a student's interactive communication within a classroom, as well as their interaction with other peers, so that they can create communication goals. So in more inclusive settings, the need for these kinds of conversational skills creates really a need to sometimes create a specific goal or more than one goal in this area. And so in your group, week 1 is really your ability to try out and get to know the P levels in greater depth. Week 2 will be your using the P levels on a student that you are now working with. So for the first, for Summarize, which is your dialogue, you have a video of Tu-Li. Tu-Li is it's a very short conversation that he's having with an educational assistant about his hearing aids. And you'll look at that sample, and then you will for Friday, the first thing you're going to do is really look at content, form, and function. If you remember from last module, those are 3 really key areas for us to describe and look at communication development. So you have a form, an observation form that really does kind of lay out what the task is. And so for Friday, you will watch the video. You're going to have to watch it more than one time and note the content examples of content, form, and function that you see in his communication. That's the start of looking at P levels. There are 2 additional levels that the P level measures, which is cohesion and reference, and you'll read about those. But after you, as an individual, part of the dialogue, contribute your observations using the video observation form, then you will begin to finish up the dialogue by making some determinations of what P level, what proficiency level, Tu-Li is currently functioning at. Now you have a very small sample, but you have some really good examples that I think help you put him in the area of one of the levels. So that's what the next part of your conversation is. What P level do you see him functioning at, and what are a couple of communication goals you might set? For the summarizer, there is a summary form. And so your job is to get the group's idea about P level, where he's functioning. Make sure that you look carefully at the instructions on page 33 of the assessment tools, because it gives you very specific ways, the rules really, for using and assigning a proficiency level for a student. And so this form has you, as a group, determine what's the P level, what evidence can you point to that says he's a P level 3 or a P level 4 or a P level 7. And you have a place to put an example of content, form, use, which is function, reference, that's the 4th area, and cohesion. You'll learn what those areas are as you read about the P levels. And then as a group to come up with a couple of ideas for communication goals based on what you observed. And that is that's Summarize. That's by Sunday night. Your apply is really you're using the P level scale to assess your student. So there are very specific ideas here. You want to not just look at the student once. This is an informal observational assessment. So you are going to watch your student, and it's important that you watch him or her in different settings. So directly observe the student in a couple of settings. Take detailed notes because you're going to observe and write what you see. Talk with an informant. Talk with the teacher, classroom teacher, the special education teacher. Informants are great because they can help you kind of zero in on what the student knows and can do in terms of communication. And then post your observation notes, your final P-level assessment to the Dropbox. I have a worksheet that is going to help you know exactly what to do. So this is the P-level project worksheet, which I think is up here and we can look at. You want to attach your observation notes. You want to attach the P-level form. That's the form that if you determine it's a P-level 5, then you want the form completed for P-level 5. I need student information. And then in your report, as you write, what's the student assigned P-level, briefly and a rationale. Use this worksheet. Don't do it on anything else. Use this sheet. I need examples of the student performance that you think provides evidence that the student is performing at that P-level model. And then identify 2 of the 5 areas to begin to write a goal around. So 2 conversational goals. I give you an example. So for example, in the area of function or use, here's the goal that I developed. The student, Tuli, will ask or initiate who and what questions to find out information about things and people in informal and instructional conversations. So in social and in academic. And I'm going to observe that 5 times a day. Now, we're not perfect at writing these goals. Some of you have lots of experience and some of you don't have a lot of experience. But the key is that you develop the goal from the P levels. You find something that really is meaningful and you write the goal. So this is an example. And then I'd like you to identify 2 questions. If you have more, that's great. But at least 2 questions that you have about using the P levels so that I can answer those after you've gone through this, this process. And that is Module 2. So you start tomorrow. I think this might give you a little bit of a frame. I think the videos really are meant to give you a frame so you can start kind of knowing what the 2 weeks is going to look like. But if you have any questions, let me know. Thanks.